got this 1951/52 Schwinn. It's either a Panther or a Hornet. Everything was painted blue. No, nothing was taken apart when somebody rattle canned this whole thing. Let's have a look. Crank, chain guard, crank arms. So this thing was just about rusted in half from this point over here. So I took my MIG welder there and built a bridge of metal here, enough to where I can save it. Taking these handlebars off because for some odd reason they didn't bother spraying the gooseneck. I suppose I should thank my lucky stars for that. I'm attempting to use some of this navel jelly to remove this rust. I mean, there's no problem with the navel jelly removing the rust, but I got a combination of brake fluid and navel jelly trying to loosen up this paint. So far, I got all the parts stripped with the exception of the frame and a fender, the rear fender to be specific. Forks are stripped. A little sanding on those. They're not bad. They're not bent. The fenders, however, ooh boy. Somebody's been in here with some filler. Plastic filler. Bondo, maybe, you know. But, yeah, their metal straightening skills, I guess they were non-existent because they figured if there was a dent in it, let's just fill it with filler. Oh boy. What you're not seeing is the chain guard was also loaded with filler. So let me bring it over here. So oh boy, everything was hammered and filled with Bondo. So I got all that Bondo out of there. In fact, the stripper actually loosened up the Bondo and I just chipped it out. It didn't take long at all. As far as all the stuff that was real crinkly, I used my hammers, my hammers here. And I put this one in the vise, actually, like this. So this end was up. That was my backing. So basically, this metal went in between here on the vise, and I was straightening it out. And actually, I think it turned out really, really nice. Compared to all the body fender or the body filler that was in there, I think with a little more work that'll look really nice. And yeah, this is so one fender at a time, but you can see how these things are sitting, these guys. That's how twisted the fender is, you know. So what I'm going to do, ultimately I have to remove these fender supports, but not yet. What I want to do is I want to bolt them together down here and then start working on my fender to get it as flat and level as possible. And then I can drill these guys out because these have to be addressed also separately. And yeah. Oh, and we got a giant hole here at the top. Well, that hole shouldn't be that big. Those holes should be there for a light, but they had them filled in. This hole shouldn't be that big, so I got a remedy for that. I'm just going to TIG weld under here, or as I say, MIG weld, a washer, a large enough washer to cover that whole diameter, and do a little body work at the top. But that'll fix that problem right there. Okay, moving right along. Okay, I'm in the middle of stripping the frame now. There's quite a few coats of paint on here. Let's see if we can deduce what we're seeing here. So I know there is a coat of red primer at the very, very base on the metal. That's probably original Schwinn primer. And above that is a red paint. That's probably original Schwinn paint. Down here is a white, as you can see inside the head tube. That's also probably original Schwinn because it was white here and it came up like so. Then it looks like we have a black, right there, and orange. And then under the orange, we have a gray primer right there, and then the blue. So there's quite a few layers for this stripper to take off, but it's actually doing a pretty good job of it. So just using this box here as my support to catch all my paint, so I can just discard that after it dries. And yeah, just scraping it with a little scraper here. It's pretty easy. So right now I'm just letting it sit and let the stripper work its job. And when I get the most of the midsection here, I will work on the end and the end so I can keep the garbage inside a box. All right, we'll be back. Start pounding this fender out. We got some pounding to do. We're just gonna wing it. So yeah, we'll take it right over there and start hammering. You know what? I can work with that. All right, I came up with a great jig for this fender as I work on it. Well, I mounted it right back on its fork, but this gives me an opportunity to use both hands to really see where I'm going. So basically, I'm sanding their old filler and hammering out at the same time. As you can see, there's all kinds of little valleys in here. Well, there's really deep low spots in the sheet metal itself, and where that is really thick here, that's also dented. So that has to be hammered out. This really giving me a great opportunity to see what's going on here. Also, I see a crack right here and a very, very deep depression in the metal right there. And all of these little dark spots here, well, that's where primer is below the surface of the actual fender. And that tells me that those can come up a little bit to be hammered up. Yeah, I'll just keep going as well as I can do, and try to get down to a bare minimum of body filler, you know. But you could see that's like that camouflage leopard spot. All of those are low spots, and that was actually coming from somebody trying to straighten the fender and hitting it with the edge of a hammer or maybe even an ice pick. Who knows? But clearly a lot of dimpling going on here, and so now we get to clean up the mess. Back in that fender, well, I got one there too, but I'm not there yet. But I am exposing the one on the opposite side, so I'm going to go ahead and throw some metal in there with my welder, and we'll go from there. Looks pretty good. While I'm at it, let's just go through a little nut side right now. Fire the hole! All right, we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, okay. So we just filled that with metal, and that side right there. So at least I don't have to worry about it cracking anymore. Let's get back to work. I'll give you an update. Sand, peck with a hammer, your body hammers, peck, do more sanding. Again, there's no filler in this fender. What I'm doing is I'm sanding off that previous person's Bondo or filler, and I'm looking to see where my low spots are at. And then when I get to a certain point, I'll come tap up on those. And then, you know, like I'll tap up here, and I'll tap out on this here along this whole edge. It's really bad there. But the idea is to use the filler that was already put in there as your guide. This fender's still going to need some filler. But the idea is to try to get it as round and level as possible before you start just throwing more filler in there, because the idea is to have a very thin coat of filler, not this. I mean, this is a 1/4 inch thick in some places. As far as I'm going to go with my hammer and my leveling, the next time we see this fender, I'll be putting a skim coat of body filler on it. But I had to address that split that was in there. I got these splits all addressed, and now with all metal, they'll get some filler. So you see that's a low spot. That's a very low spot. So with opposed to this being high also, because I put metal in there, so we'll just have to work it as we go. But yeah, I'm actually quite pleased with how that came out. Now I can't really work that one out the way I want to because it's under the fender stay, so it's a double piece of metal I gotta try to hammer through. But yeah, I think yeah, it's ready for some body filler, and that's what you'll be seeing next time. I'm working on these fenders. They are just so bad. So what I ended up doing is I ended up bobbing them, bobbing the front and the back, and I'll show you how much I took off. Okay, on the back I took off, wait for it, that much, and you can see why. It was just so brutal. So the fender used to come around like so, kind of like that, come all the way back, and now it's bobbed there. In the front, I took this much off, so let's see, kind of like that. Yeah, I would really like to save those fenders, but they're in such bad shape. Anyway, the history of this bike I do not know, other than the fact visually you can see that it was not cared for. So now it's just going to look like a much sportier bike. And I wanted to keep this front stay on this here, because otherwise I would have bobbed it here, but then it's just going to float around because there's only one connecting point here. So I'll keep these stays at the bottom. But in the back I got rid of both stays, and I was able to because it's a connecting point here and a connecting point there. Yeah. So moving right along. In fact, I got to do a little bit more filling and leveling, but it's going really good now. It's my filler I put on here, and I just got to finish taking the rest of this paint off. I'm happy with the way this is level. This is good. This is good, and maybe I want to do a little work up here. And the frame looks fantastic. There is no damage on this frame or the fork. And I think I've just about given up on that rack. I mean, I got it together, but I don't know. I gotta get forward progress going here. So yeah. Anyway, I gotta take a few hours and clean up my workroom. It is an absolute mess before I continue. All right. Stay tuned. As usual, well, here's my base color. It's called, what the hell is it called? Sandstorm Tan. The rest of this bike is going to be green. Commander green. In fact, what I'm using is duplicolor lacquer. And giving you an update where I'm at. I got the other parts all outside already being sprayed. This will be the next thing. Just want to make sure that I check my masking tape. We're off to a great start. I already scratched my paint. Anyway, that's part of my rear wheel hub that I tore apart because I'm going to be painting these rims. And the spokes on there were very, very nasty. And I will show you. This is the front wheel. See how nasty those spokes are? So I ordered some stainless steel spokes. And we'll be putting some stainless steel spokes on there. All right. That's the update for now.